What's going on, family? How is everybody doing? I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day and happy and healthy and everything that goes along with that. Um, Family, please, 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 just hit that like button for me. Just hit that like button for me. I would appreciate it. Would mean a lot. Just hit that like button. Cost you nothing. If you want to pay something, you can go to donatebrown.com. You can go to patreon.com/ycarnell. You can do all of that good stuff if you want to. Also, go to subscribe to brown.com just to give me your email address if you have not. So I have it. I have been sending out the newsletters to everybody recently, because we have a lot of stuff about COVID and stuff I just think everybody needs to know just on general purposes. So please, please, please do that. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do that. If you have not hit that bell, like I said, do that. If you have not, what else? What else you got to do? Yes, hit that like button for you all who have just come into the chat. So listen, I think one of the things that I think about, and I think we need to talk about. I didn't want to talk about this because I felt like we've talked about it enough, and we're not going to talk about it as a subject. I'm not talking about the 1619 project as a subject or anything that just happened, but something else happened. We're going to talk about that somebody else talked about it, and the talking about it was all wrong. And I tried to avoid it and leave it alone and just let it go, but I couldn't, because one of the things that we have to understand, there's always a lot of conversation. Everybody knows how to talk about what happens with black bodies. We we're not going to get into it. Antonio and I did a discussion about, Brunswick, Georgia, the murder of the man who was walking and jogging, right? Well, white people just go run, get their guns, and decide they're going to play policeman. They say respect authority, but they just want to go run and get their guns. And hey, I'm going to corner you, and listen, I am the police. Whiteness is my badge. So we understand how they do that. We understand how they do that with black bodies. You have a lot of people who talk about black bodies, and we understand how that happens. One of the things that we don't really understand, though, is how that happens with the black mind. And when I say black mind, I'm talking about ADOS. I'm using these terms interchangeably because, I don't really agree with the term black because it flattens all blackness. I prefer to talk about lineage and how lineage matters. But for the purpose of this, what I was talking about, I'm talking about the mind in terms of what you say, what you are allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, and what other people are allowed to say. I want us to understand the confines of discourse and how our discourse is kind of strangled. And if you can't really have a conversation, if you're unable to fully voice your point of view, that's a type of censorship. That's a type of racism in and of itself. And I'm going to explain through this little case study what I mean and how it's a problem that we don't have free thought. We're only allowed to kind of co-sign the thought of the Democratic Party. Or if you want to be Republican, you all remember what happened to old boy. You remember what happened to old boy? What was it, Herman Cain? Wasn't that him when he tried to say something about he tried to say something about Mitt Romney's home when he had a little ornament on it and there was a name I can't mention on YouTube? You see how these things kind of flow together in terms of censorship, but it doesn't flow for other groups. So this is what I'm talking about. There was this whole conversation. This guy who who talked about what's wrong to the Hill. He's talking to the conservative, the Hill, about what's wrong with the 1619 project. Now, put the project aside. Keep it in context as just a historical project about slavery. All the qualms that we had about it, put that aside for just a moment. Just consider this guy is talking about it and how he's talking about it. Because if you go and you watch it, I tweeted it earlier. But if you go and you watch it, a few things stand out, not just about what he's saying, but about who he is, how he gets to be on the right and on the left. So wait a minute, and I'm going to get into it, but we can't have a political thought about or open dialogue about anything without being called names, without being called nativists or whatever they want to call us on any given day. He can write for whoever he wants to write for, whether it's the Conservative National Review or whether he wants to write For a leftist magazine, he can go anywhere and say whatever he wants. The world is his oyster, but we can't do that. Now, let's just go through a few things. We're going to go through a few things because something else was interesting. When you talk about this black-brown coalition, when you talk about ADOS and the flattening of ADOS with other groups and with other brown groups and the shared coalition and all this kind of stuff, I don't know if you all remember what happened to Antonio when he tried to do a rebuttal of an article that was in City Lab. It was brown editors. I can't remember who it was. Like the woman who wrote the article, I think it was about Kenya, and then it was somebody else, and so he couldn't even get in like our point of view, and we're ADOS. So you kind of look at what's happening in terms of the guy who's interviewing him. I don't know where any of these people are from, but this is the brown part of the what's supposed to be the black-brown coalition talking and giggling about how we shouldn't, not the specificity, but we shouldn't have a conversation about slavery, and we shouldn't talk about what he called past grievances. That was his thing. Like, this is just past grievances. Why are we having this conversation about somebody else's past grievances? Like, and at a certain point of the conversation, somebody reminded me of this today. He goes into this and he starts giggling. And he's giggling as he's doing something. I'm talking about this guy right here, not the guy who's talking to him. He's giggling as he talks about ADOS. And he talks about what's wrong with ADOS. And in terms of our particular grievances and how the 1619 Project as a slavery project is all about our grievances. And we should just look at what life is today. Now, hold on a second. One of the things that he says as he goes into what life is today, he says, well, now this is a Republican. This is a really, for somebody who's supposed to be running around kind of, he's at the Intercept. He's at all these places. He's running around like he's actually a leftist. He gets to be everything. I don't get to be everything. Nobody lets me just run around and be whatever I want to be. Like I'm Batman. Just throw a cape on. Da-da-da-da. I'm wearing an R. I'm wearing a D. I'm wearing whatever. I'm a free thinker. I don't get to do that. But he gets to run around and do all this stuff. So he gets into this real problematic thing where he starts kind of parroting right wing. Follow me with the Brown Coalition conversation. He starts parroting right wing talking points, and he says they want to talk about basically us. We want to talk about slavery, but we don't want to talk about what happened. You know, we don't want to talk about we act like, he says the project acts like the last 50 years in America didn't happen. Basically, he says America fixed ADOS in the last 50 years, and we don't want to talk about that. We just want to relive past grievances. And what right do we, as the people who built the country, have to relive and any kind of past grievances? But focus on one thing, fam. This is what I want to say, too. Understand when you're listening to someone who would say to us things they would never say to another community. You would never tell Native Americans, please just shut up. Just please. I don't want to hear any more about what happened. I don't want to hear any more about the Trail of Tears. I don't want to hear none of all of that. Just stop. You would never do that. You would never do that, even though you did get in trouble with another community that we won't speak about. But you would never do that. But you go on there and you giggle. And so what I'm saying, you giggle about us. So what I'm saying is, when we talk about this Brown Coalition, I think we have to be very clear, because first of all, what you understand is that I don't know why he's talking about race when he doesn't understand race, because this is, let's just pull this up real quick. Let me see if I can find it. So he says, well, I don't know why we're not talking about the last 50 years because, you know, why are we just talking about past grievances? Because the thing about race is this, there is no past. It's all one straight line. Please hear me, fam. There is no past. It's one straight line all the way from slavery all the way up to now. One straight line. So if you want to, well, let's talk about something that happened like in the 80s and 90s. You say we don't want to talk about it. How the crack cocaine epidemic caused a surge in violence, particularly amongst young black men in the 1980s and 90s. If you want to talk about what race looks like today, since you're confused and you want to go on the hill and sniggle and giggle like a clown, let's talk about what it looked like. Let's bring these 4 charts up. Okay, let's just bring them up. We all know what it looks like. Right, now look at those bottoms. 15 to 24, that's your solid. Then your dotted, 26 to 34, 35 plus. I want you to just look at that. Now look at this. Let me go back up to the top. National murder rates, 1968 to 2015 by race. Now I want you to just, you know, people, the top, you see black males. Then you see white males. Then at the bottom, you see black females and you see white females, right? Now look at that peak. Look at black males right there. I want you to take a look at that. Just let that sit right there. And it goes, and you see where it hits in the 80s and 90s and how that coincides with what? Now look at the numbers on the left, because you got to pay close attention, or you won't notice that those numbers on the left for black males are vastly larger than the numbers on the left for white males. And the same thing for women. I don't even know what white women are doing. They ain't doing nothing. Ain't no murder or nothing. But listen. So if you want to say we don't talk about it, we're talking about it right now. We're having this conversation right now. See, the problem is you're talking about something. Look at that murder rate on the left. I'm just going to leave that up for a second. Now I want you to make sure you look at the black males versus white males and look at the time period. And then I want to go down to the bottom. Now this, coincides with what Antonio's documentary, Freeway, Rick Ross Cracking the System. This is still race. So when you come to me and say, I don't know why they don't talk about anything. They don't talk about anything that happened in the 80s and 90s. They just talk about stuff that happened a long, long time ago. And they're just fixated on grievance. First of all, I don't know how you get to run around and pretend like you are in other aspects, because you done been, if this is the same person, you've been at the Intercept and Think Progress before it was defunct and a whole bunch of other places. How do you get to run around and just say stuff and not know anything? How do people not see you for who you are? You're a careerist. And what we're finding is that, and the reason why I make the assessment that I make in terms of the black-brown coalition or the rainbow coalition has failed, I'm not saying it was a bad experiment. I don't mean no disrespect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and all of them. I'm not trying to say that. I understand what you might have been thinking. You might have been thinking this. You might have been thinking that if we get all the brown people since we are minority, if we get the brown people on our side, then we can have a black-brown coalition or rainbow coalition. We can have Asians and Latinos and black immigrants. We can have everybody on our side, and that way we will have more votes for the stuff that we need, and we can fight white supremacy like that with the white liberals, and maybe we can do it that way. What I'm telling you is that we thought it would build a coalition, but what happened is that we became the doormat to people who will now say stuff like this about us to our face while giggling. I don't care whose friend this is or who, I don't care. What you have is an idea that it could have worked. But when people get to see the reason why it didn't work is because they switched up what blackness was. So white America always allows certain groups to be white, but then some group has to stay stuck to the bottom, and that is us. So if you look at pre-19, we talked about this, pre-1965, the number of the immigrants in America was to the right of the decimal point, right? Hardly any immigrants here, right? So when you look at that and you look at this, how are we a group that's been here for 400 years? How are we stuck to the bottom? How does this make sense? The only way that this is the tie that binds, it goes all the way. This is the tie that binds. When you see a chart like this that has us with Latinos, the overwhelming majority of here were not here pre-1965. The overwhelming majority, right? When you see a group that comes here and we're here with groups that just got here, or they have, in some cases, what you see is, hold on 1 second, please. 1 second. Let me bring up this. Y'all remember this? So when you see, in some cases, all these other groups that have more wealth than we have, right? You see whites. You see, this is I know y'all remember this chart. I ain't even going to the color of wealth LA. You see African black. You see Chinese, Japanese. You even got Korean, even the Vietnamese, Filipino, Asian, Indian. When you see numbers like that, and we've been here, what that tells you is this. This group is intentionally placed on the bottom. And the fact that chart, listen, if this chart were different, then he would have a point. He doesn't understand race. because he wants to erase race. It's hard to understand race if what you want to do is to get rid of it, to make me just like you and you just like me. If you want to get involved in the erasure of race, it's really hard for you to understand it, because your opportunities in life depend on not understanding it, because you don't want to see me on the top of a hierarchy. You want to flatten it because you don't benefit if I get reparations. If ADOS get reparations, you don't benefit. So what's the point? So we have become a doormat. We have become a doormat into the house of Americana, as opposed to people joining with us in some kind of rainbow coalition. It just didn't work out. It just didn't work. Nobody's being judgmental about it or saying what should have happened or how it happened. I'm just saying it didn't work. And let me tell you why. Any kind of solidarity you have has to be based. It absolutely has to be based in agenda. So you have to be on my agenda. And I don't really gotta be on your agenda yet. Been here 400 years, and in terms of, I know we're like not the majority. I think Latinos passed us, right? But still the most loyal group in the Democratic base. I'm not doing anything for you if you're not on my team. That's what solidarity is built of. Solidarity isn't built of anything else. So you have him being able to go around and write stuff like this about Warren. I think this was where was this at? One of these liberal places. So he gets to just do everything. And it's not just him. There is this coalition of quote unquote minorities, and we've seen this. It's a lot of them, and they both have been at the Intercept. What a surprise! Y'all both have been at the Intercept at the time. Lee Fang was the same way. Why not reparations for the millions of human beings, for the millions of human beings killed during wars waged? Remember this, overtly and covertly by the U.S. government in Vietnam, Laos, Iraq, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Nicaragua, and Panama, and so on. So understand what he's saying. You just got to understand this. This is the dumbest stuff I think I ever heard. Understand what he's saying. Before we give listen, why are we giving reparations to the people that built the country and got plundered and convict leased and all that stuff? Why don't we give reparations to everybody? Like, why don't we give reparations to people who got bombed and wars and stuff? And listen, we don't even want to give it to you first. Understand, Lee Fang didn't even say in his analysis, well, let's just give it to you first. Yes, you earned it or whatever. But like, once we're done with that, why don't we consider some other stuff? No, that's just a way to say why not to do it. Because if you say we got to give it to everybody, of course everybody says, well, I can't do that. It don't make no sense. I'm not going to give it to Nicaragua and Cambodia. If we're going to do it that way, I'm not going to do it at all. If you make it about everybody, it becomes about nobody. So you got to understand when somebody is trying to neutralize the argument. When you try to say give money to everybody, that means give money to nobody. It's just like if somebody tells you right now, if somebody hands you $20 or something, because you say, well, I need you to give me my $20 back you owe me. Right? And then somebody else comes along, why don't you just give $20 to everybody? Just go out on the street and give it away if you're going to do that. It's like, what? What kind of sense is that? What? What you mean? And there's a precedent. Like, we're American citizens. I'm not even speaking on what happens abroad, but there's certainly a precedent. You know, it's funny to me that the Japanese got $20K for internment. We're talking about 400 years, and dude comes in and says, Lee Fang comes in and says, well, what about is, and what about, and what about, and what about, and what about all lives matter. This is not your ally. There is no coalition here. There is no coalitioning here. Because understand what these people did. We were having a conversation about reparations. ADOS put reparations on the table. Boom. First time in my adult life. Probably my child life, but I don't remember when I was a little kid. But first time in my life, reparations on the table. Instead of joining on board and saying, you know what? Absolutely. They're absolutely right. All of your leftists, especially your black and brown leftists or minority leftists, They jumped the other way. I just want you to make sure we understand, and it's still happening. Movement for Black Lives reparations policy platform calls for free public education, public higher ed, but only for those who ID is African American. So you try to change. So you want to give me wealth. That's fine, but you still have, that's fine, but that's not what we're calling for. You have to give me what I'm calling for. Several 2020 candidates support the right to free college for all. No racial barriers. The latter is far more generous and far more progressive. Listen, a debt is a debt. A debt, this is not a policy prescription. It's not supposed to be progressive. You did not tell, like nobody told Holocaust survivors, well, we're going to give money to everybody. That's progressive. What are you talking about? How do you deserve just the money is for you? The money is you just what the money is for what the money is for you for what? Nobody told nobody else that. Nobody told the Japanese, what do you want money for? Nobody said, nobody really, people, you know, the government is very kind of insidious towards Native Americans in terms of not allowing them to have control. But nobody tells them, like, what right do you have to want anything? You want the casinos or something? What you want that for? Who did something to you? Hush, we're going to give free education. It's a given. It's a given to all, with all other groups. It's a given that, yes, you were wronged and we owe redress. But it's almost as if we have a group in terms of this black-brown coalition that has been weaponized to make sure that ADOS remains on the bottom no matter what. Don't change this hierarchy. Because if you make this hierarchy about how American you are, in terms of when you go back and you tell these people, I can show pictures of my people, right? I can show pictures of my people on sharecropper field. I can take my family line all the way back here. How about you? When you say that, people get uncomfortable. People say it's nativist. That means that you can't even express yourself. We can't express ourselves. How much do we get chased around the internet? If we can't, as people, have a conversation about who we are and without being bludgeoned. See, because what you're doing, and when you do that, you're tamping down you're not allowing me to be fully intellectual. You're saying, listen, you are only allowed to soldier on politically unless you soldier on my field. If you are not going to be a soldier on the Democratic battlefield and just take your orders and go out and be a mule for what we have decided, you don't get anything. That's what that says. You get nothing. If you want something, you have to do what we say. And that means everybody. Well, wait a minute. You didn't build a country. You didn't do this. I don't care. I'm a Democrat. I don't care if I got here yesterday. I'm still co-signing that you get to be on the bottom and you don't get to say nothing. Well, that's very unfortunate. Why would I co-sign something like that? Oh my God, you're trying to suppress the vote. What? I'm trying to get what I want out of the vote. That's not suppressing the vote. And I'm leaving the top of the ticket blank. I'm going Democratic down ballot. That's suppressing the vote. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting how we get policed by people who have no right to police us. It's all very interesting. You have the same thing happened. Like I just put up from the head of Jacobin came out real quick. He didn't have a conversation with nobody. He just said, he came out and said, we got to think beyond reparations. So you got him, you got the black and brown coalition done fell apart. That's all I'm telling you. It's in tatters. So we just have to call it. This man gets to write in this little dude right here who was here talking about, and understand, let me just go through a little bit of what he said. He talked about, those of you who don't know, go look up the Moynihan report, how they talked about how our problems was, a lot of how they went into the family problems and didn't talk about how that was a part of the destabilization and everything that happened to us. Stressful people, poor people don't tend to keep together families, but whatever. He talked about how we have our cultural fabric. That's a very right-wing thing to say. The problem is our cultural fabric. You got better culture, right? Well, we took care of redlining. We know, if you know anything about redlining, you will know that, like, even after the Supreme Court ruled on like housing discrimination, it wasn't implemented. Politics is personnel. You don't know enough about race, or maybe you just know and you're not telling the truth. But this is a very disingenuous. This is awful. I don't know of a better video that put the black-brown coalition to bed. Go to sleep. And you want to play leftist and play right wing all at the same time. Then you want to talk about, well, Nicole Hannah-Jones worked for, the thing was funded by Shell. Part of the reason, let me just say this, and I'm not defending or not defending nobody, but let me just say this. When we even about, well, a lot of these places that people talk about were led by black politicians, and nobody, that's such a right-wing talking point. Or the reason everybody talk about how stuff bad is in Detroit and Chicago, it's led by Democrats. What you got to say? Well, I got to say everywhere is bad for black people. Let me just say this. Part of the reason that we don't have good politicians or politicians, part of the reason that we had a CBC and we don't have good politicians is because of our lack of wealth. What do you mean? If we could, as a group, Citizens United changed everything, but let's just say we were a wealthy group. We could give money to whatever politician we wanted to. They wouldn't have to go get as much money. Now, we got a whole thing where people got to give a lot of money, but they wouldn't have to give as much money. If people had wealth, if our people had wealth, that's the thing. When you live in this country, when this is our reality, it becomes a problem. Because that is race. That is race. And the Supreme Court, you know, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and it's getting struck down. Basically, when Byron Allen lost the case, what looks like in 2020, that's 1866 to 2020, and we still fighting this fight. And you're telling me that race don't matter. And people hear you somehow because you're brown. Because we've made this about melanin. It's never been about melanin. It's never been about how brown you are. It's been about where you come from. What is your lineage in this country? What did you build in this country? What did you suffer through in this country? What did you endure in this country? And you cannot enter the conversation at all if you don't know enough. Or if you're underhandedly trying to kill reparations so that you can use that money, or the government can use that money for a different project without paying that debt. No, you don't get to enter into this in that way. See, if you don't have any wealth in this political system and your community doesn't have any wealth and there's no base of wealth, what happens is, instead of becoming a player in the system, you become a pawn. That's why I say, if the CBC can't do anything for us, I would rather them not even be there. If they got to be pawns, because that's what it means to be a black legislated official or whatever, because they kind of raise the money from Wall Street, then you just don't be there. Don't be there and act like you're doing something that you're really not able to do because of how the system is set up. Just come back and say, listen, I tried to do what was right, and I got ran out by other people who were doing what's wrong, and I didn't have enough money. Right? Don't go over there and do it. What they doing now? What that thing called? A tri-caucus, where you trying to bring all the people together. The tri-caucus ain't gonna work either. This browning coalition is not going to work either. The browning of America ain't going to work either. You're just going to end up working for other brown people who don't believe in reparations either, who don't believe you deserve more either, who don't believe that race should be a part of the conversation either. That's just it. It ain't going to work. Let it go. Some stuff you got to learn. You got to learn when to let an idea die. So when I talk about, like, remember, like, how we got ran off by, now I said this guy was in the Intercept. He's been on Think Progress. He's been on and then he says, he writes this thing, don't racialize the pandemic. Rather than trying to draw a circle around the racial approximation of who has it worst, we should marshal our resources and sympathies to ensure that nobody squeezes through the cracks. It may very well be that in many locations, the majority of or disproportionate number of people who hold the actual causal risk factors are African American, Latino. But if we care for these people, and you don't, I just put that in there. But if we care for these people who hold the actual at-risk factors, rather than trying to approximate them with racial generalizations, we should be able to respond in a way that encompasses everyone, whether they be black, or Latino, Asian, white, or Native American. If I ain't heard a bunch of garbage, that don't even make sense. So sometimes you just got to leave stuff where it is. That's just dumb writing. Furthermore, the progressives who are pushing racial narratives around the virus. And see, let me just pause right here. Just pause. Nobody is pushing a racial narrative. The data has been very racial in terms of who is most affected. A lot of that has to do with how we have to work as essential workers, and how we have to work and our place on the hierarchy is directly tied to race and racism in America. I don't know what he's talking about, but I'll just start from the beginning. Furthermore, the progressives who are pushing the racial narratives around the virus should think about the political cost of doing so. In many ways, the pandemic has united Americans, encouraging the kind of mass solidarity needed for social distancing and supporting emergency measures, such the over $2 trillion of relief spending Congress just authorized. That's a bad sentence. Research shows that implicit associations between African Americans and poverty decrease support for aiding the poor, because people wrongly think that helping the poor with government assistance means helping blacks over whites. Listen, you're telling us, you can just read that sentence while I'm in here. You're telling us that we shouldn't be accurate about what is happening and why it's happening, because it's not politically effective. And this is a person who likes to say, apparently, that they have some kind of honor, or that they have beliefs. I believe this person is a careerist with no beliefs. Like, that's what it sounds like from what they're writing. And to the extent that they have beliefs, they're not good about they're not beneficial to us. So let me see if I can find the next one. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on. This is the kicker. This one is the kicker. In some sense, the racialization of the coronavirus is part of a larger racialization of social and political issues in the United States. I fear, do you fear, dear? Do you fear? I fear that this racialization is giving life to racial categories, pretending that they are material rather than a coincidental feature of a person. Put a pin in that. He said race is a coincidental feature of a person. Oh my God, how dare you? See, this is what they do. Like the past didn't happen. No, and the past don't affect nothing. No. It's just a coincidence. It don't mean nothing. It didn't affect nothing. It ain't nothing. What about crack cocaine? What about the number of black men in prison and how that affects family? No, that's just a coincidental feature. Then let me tell you what you can do. Now, I agree that it's a coincidental feature, right? But the problem is somebody else in my history made it not coincidental. I agree that race never should have mattered. I don't even think race is a thing. I don't think it exists. I think people are just brown or have different hair textures. But somebody decided way back in slavery that it's going to exist. And even how it ebbed and flowed. First, mulattoes were kind of treated differently and better in some cases. And then it kind of became a structure of one drop. And now it's kind of coming out of that again, where you see some differences again in terms of how mixed race people, biracial, are anchored in one white parent. There's a lot of stuff going on. It ebbs and flows. But you decided that in America, we're talking about ADOS right now. You decided that we were going to be tethered to the bottom. You made race matter. You don't get to be a country that made race matter and made race be an anchor. Race is an anchor and an albatross around our neck. You don't get to do that and make us that way and then come back later on and say, well, it's a coincidence. It's a coincidental feature. You made it more than that. You made it everything. See, this is what you made. This is what America made race. America made race a lot of stuff. America made race this. In terms of that, race meant that like we had no property rights. Right? And that wealth couldn't be passed down intergenerationally. So that means that you don't have the grandmother or the great grandmother who left something to your grandmother, and the grandmother left something and they were able to accrue and add to it. That means that we don't have that. That's called generational wealth. That means that now we have a stigma. You have the stigma of being ADOS. Oh, wait, you're not ADOS, you're another kind of black? Oh, you're not like them ADOS over there. They real rebellious, got a chip on their shoulder. They fight for freedom and stuff. Right? You made this an albatross specifically around the neck of ADOS, and you made it to where we didn't have rights. You plundered, you stole. So I don't know who this little dude is right now, but you don't get to come in here and tell us that it doesn't matter anymore. You don't get to tell me anything. Not ever in this life. I don't know what would make you even think you get to be in the same room or you get to go somewhere and speak on us at all. Like, what made you open your mouth? See, too long, we have not spoken out when people open their mouth on us. Don't put your mouth on me. You don't get to talk about me, especially and not know nothing. The Jim Crow laws were designed specifically to destroy black wealth. What are you talking about? What do you think the consequence is today? Well, I just want to talk about what happened in the last 50 years. Nobody ever talks about that. Everybody just talk about what happened in the Jim Crow laws. Do you know what that meant for now? Do you have no idea about what that meant for now? I can't tell anymore whether people, I can't tell anymore whether people are just lying or whether they're stupid. I can't tell no more. But do you have no idea? And I'm not trying to be mean. Do you have no idea what it means to be constantly plundered? You don't get to just be like, well, then we all the same. No, everybody, listen, the people right now who are doing good during the coronavirus, they're living off somebody's money or wealth or help. They've had it. Now, if you built the country, you deserve to have it. You deserve to be okay and be like, well, it's going to be rough, but I'm going to slide through this time. That doesn't mean they're not white people in Appalachia. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they shouldn't get some help after me. Jesse Jackson, speaking of Reverend Jesse Jackson, he tried to bring in the people, poor white people and everybody. That was part of what his campaign was based on. Bringing the poor white people and the black people together. They didn't buy it. They could have. That was your one shot, white people, to do me the whole I'm poor too thing. You missed your opportunity. Jesse Jackson went all over Appalachia, tried to have conversations and tell you how we all had to get together, and you didn't want it. Well, I'm through with you. I don't want to hear it no more about that. And even when you talk about it, poor white people have a class status. White people in general. You got the super elite, the elite, the upper middle, the middle, the lower class, and the lower middle. You got all, and then you got the poor. We're just all poor. Nearly all. White people have nearly all the wealth. So when this guy says what he says about, well, where is the structural inequality seated? It's seated in the fact that we have a system, political, corporate, and otherwise, where white America has nearly all the wealth. And there are other minority groups that are catching up. But we're tethered to the bottom. So it's like Antonio said. Some of us have anchors that pull us down. That's us. That's ADOS. Everybody else got balloons. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand race enough to be talking to anybody about any kind of project, 16, 19, or otherwise. You don't know enough to have a conversation about anybody's project. Somebody else can have that conversation, I'm sure. A historian or somebody else. Even when you say the history's wrong, there have always been debates about whether the history is right or wrong or who got it. I remember when The Half Has Never Been Told came out, and they were talking, there were people who disagreed and said it didn't happen that way, it didn't beat the slaves that way, and there was a whole thing that happened. History's never been like, this is just what happened. There are always interpretations. We had a whole bunch of years with Dixie history. We had the whole, where they rewrote it. Now, they rewrote it wrong, but we've always had debates about history and historical meanings. There's a whole debate about Abraham Lincoln right now about whether he really wanted to free the slaves or he cared more about the country. I have my own thoughts, but there's always historical debate. Like, to get on there and be like, well, nobody is against this. No other group had Jim Crow laws that plundered us and made it so we couldn't have wealth, to stripped us of wealth. Like, let me just read a quote from this. This is just to show you what this means here. In the paper, Collins, and this is the paper about the 100-year penalty for being black, and Wanamaker set out to understand the mechanisms that drive a wedge between the incomes of blacks and whites from one generation to the next. Their big finding is this: between 1880 and 2010, whites, look at that. First of all, let me just stop. Look at 1880 and 2010. Look how long that is. You have to be tethered to the bottom for you to do something like that. This long? Look how many years that is. Whites show much higher rates of upward mobility than blacks, even if their parents started from the same economic position. There is a specific penalty for black people, which is independent of whatever income their fathers earn, want to make a Tell City Lab. And that has been constant over 100 years. That ain't nothing to do with no family. That ain't got nothing to do with no culture. That ain't got nothing to do with... That has everything to do with what has been done to us. And there's another issue. I don't know where this gentleman comes from. But like, I think we have to understand that not everybody's the same. Some people come from places where there are castes that are built on race and slavery. I think he was born in Georgia. You know, and so, but I don't know what his parents' background is, what their background is. Everybody's not the same. We all have different histories that influence who we are and how we interact. Right? The same thing when you talk about Nigeria in terms of the slaves and all that stuff. We all have that sort of thing. You know, not us. We have it differently. We you know where we're from. And I don't know I don't know, like, how do you get to do all this? And let me just say this. He said there was something else. He said in the, you know, he just blames black politicians, and it's just about, and without understanding the context in which these politicians, I blame them a lot too, but the context in which they exist is that they're a part of a wealthless group, which turns them into the kind of like political prostitutes. That's what happens when you're a wealthless group, right? So you have to understand within the context. I would just rather not have a black politician, see it for what it is, that we're a powerless group and we're a wealthless group. Everybody can be clear. So he says something else, like he's from Georgia, and he talks about that. I'm from Georgia too, Playboy. Let me tell you something. He talks about transit, MARTA. He says, well, everybody talks about how even, you know, there was a thing in the 1619 Project about how the traffic is racial, but nobody talks about how Atlanta's been ruled by run by Democrats for a very long time. Well, yeah, Atlanta has been run by Democrats for a very long time. But if you know the city, if you're just talking trash, that's one thing. If you know the city, you understand that there are affluent parts that have always objected to MARTA bringing black people into their spaces, right? It's not just what kind of elementary, rudimentary, pedestrian understanding of politics do you have for you to believe that the mayor can just snap his or her fingers and make MARTA go through? No, there are votes that has to happen. So this is one of the votes that, this was just recent. It goes back a long time. But Gwinnett's MARTA referendum has failed, right? So this is Gwinnett, Georgia, rejected MARTA before in 1991 and 1990. So let me just show you. Let me just put this up here. Gwinnett has now rejected MARTA 3 times, including in 1971 and 1990. Since the last vote, the county has nearly tripled in population and shifted from a conservative suburb to a deeply diverse. Understand that deeply diverse is a lie. I'm going to prove it in a minute. To a deeply diverse community that's rapidly urbanizing. So it rejected. So you would say, like, it's deeply diverse, though. Why would it reject it? Why would it reject it? Well, diverse don't mean black. So here's what Gwinnett looks like. And then this is just one. We're just talking about one area. We're not talking about the whole history of the MARTA line. The racial makeup of the county was 54.5% white. We're talking about Gwinnett. 29.3% black. It's 29% black or African American. 12.4% Asian. And 0.8 American Indian. 0.1 Pacific Islander. 8.8 other races. So this diverse city is still only 29% black, and they rejected the MARTA expansion. That has nothing to do with the mayor of Atlanta. Got nothing to do with that. They rejected that when they went to vote. What are you putting this on black elected officials for? How is this on their plate? How is this their responsibility? No, Gwinnett rejected it. The voters of Gwinnett said no. And one of the people trying to make it happen said, yeah, it's racist. They don't want to move. They don't want black people to be able to move that freely. They want you to be able to get on a MARTA bus and come over here. What you doing over here? Right? So when you look, and this it's kind of sad, but this is why. Google search answered, what does MARTA stand for, with racist joke. And this is because this is the thought in Georgia. I don't know where this little man is from who's talking. Earlier this week, Google searches for what does MARTA stand for features a snippet. Let me go to the bottom of what it stands for. Moving Africans rapidly through Atlanta. See, that's what y'all get to by calling us Africans. But moving Africans rapidly through Atlanta. When that's what MARTA stands for. Like, understand how racialized Metro has become. How racialized and racist MARTA has become. Yes, and nobody wants you moving these Negroes into their neighborhoods. So stop. It's so stupid to say like, oh, well, it's Atlanta. It's stupid to. It's why I don't know why they blaming. Why they blaming, like they talking about the traffic is bad because of racism, but Atlanta done had a black mayor for a long time. You know good and well, or at least you should, trying to get rapid transit because you don't want rapid transit just within these little city limits. You want rapid transit to go a bunch of places where people go. You know, or at least you should know. Don't do this whole thing where you do this little stupid stuff to try to kiss butt. Don't do that. Like, you know, how do you not know that there's always been pushback against that expansion because of who rides public transportation? And that's us. The real name of MARTA is the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority. It's not moving Africans around, whatever. It's Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority. That's MARTA. And nobody wants Georgia whites don't want no Negro getting off on their stop because they could just buy a ticket. Nah, you're gonna have to drive through here. The police can stop you. Or we can try to make a citizen's arrest or whatever. We want you to drive through here, though. We would rather you drive. If you don't have a car, you can't come. We don't want nothing where you can just come through here like that. We don't want to make it easier. And this isn't the first time. See, people, if you don't know better and you didn't grow up here and see this stuff happen in real time, you might think, well, he got a point. Sounds about right. Maybe that is the problem. Maybe we's part of the problem. But he gets to just go around. This is another article from him. We just gets to go around and play both sides. Go right for the Republican mag or whatever. He looked like, unless somebody got the same name. I don't get to do that. Antonio doesn't get to do that. We get policed. That's the thing about being ADOS. Your thought is policed. You have to maintain a certain thought. You have to toe the Democratic line, or if you're going to be Republican, you got to toe that line. You can't step off of it and think, who are you as a Negro to think for yourself and think about what matters to you and your people? How dare you? And what does race mean? This is what it means. Look at American incarceration rate per 100,000 by gender and race. Look at that. You see that? You see that big line? That big, let me bring it up. The big brown line, that's young black men. Beside it, that's black men. Right? And then you got white men, the little bitty beige line. Black women, the little gold line, and white women, that little bitty purple line you can't hardly see. That's what race is. To answer Zad's question, that's what race is in the last 30, 40, 50 years. So since you said in the Hill, you don't know what race is in the last 50 years, and you don't know, we left that out, or that was left out of the project. Like, you get to decide what the project is. But I'm not even talking about that. But let me just tell you what race is, since I don't know what you was doing in Georgia. This whole conversation, you can go back, go look at it. It reads like, what about black on black crime? That's what the whole conversation was like. You and your mans. See, before I go, let me just say this. One thing you got to be careful of. One thing you got to be real careful of. Before I get off, one thing we got to be real careful of. We cannot let people redefine race and its consequences. Because it sounds so nice. Like, yeah, race could just go away and we could be one people. Nah, they got a trick. That's a trick. I know a trick when I see a trick. By erasing race, you erase the dead. That's a trick. That's a trick. That's a real trick. Because you're erasing the dead. And what do you put in replace? So wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm still gonna be on the bottom, right? Well, yeah. I mean, we all in this together. No. Tell me about you and your family and what you did and how you living and where you went to school. What's your life like? Oh, Yvette, we all in this. You don't got to ask me no personal questions. Race is, it's just... Wait a minute. You get to run around and have all these conversations? You get to run around and do all this? I can't do that. When I have a conversation that's out of the mainstream, I don't get to hang around at the Intercept or hang around nowhere else. I don't get to do none of that. I don't get to do none of that. Nuh-uh, they tell me, they call me all kind of stuff. And then people cower. Well, Yvette, Yvette, I was trying to tell you, he might have a point a little bit. You were a little bit too hard. Don't nobody tell him that. Nuh-uh, I can do what I want. I do what I want. I don't have to. No, he don't run around kowtowing. He write for the National Review and then go write for whoever. Gonna go write for this person, go write for Al Jazeera, do whatever he want to do. Make up all kind of stuff to fit a narrative that I don't even understand. Why I gotta just be one way? I gotta just toe the Democratic line. If I get out of pocket, they're gonna be mad. I can't get out of pocket. If I get out of Democratic pocket, they're gonna be upset. Start blinking all hard. They're going to be upset. I can't do that. I don't care. I don't care about, no, I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm just going to say the truth. And the truth is always backed up by data. Race matters. They made it matter. Racists made it matter. The people who bought us from the Africans who used the money to buy saltfish and cloth, whatever flowers or the dashikis, whatever you bought with the money. You made race matter. You decided who was going to be on the bottom, and we're still on the bottom. It matters. It has always mattered. And no little man on the hill is going to make it not matter. You don't make it not matter. Your opinion should never have meant anything to anyone. You don't even have strong beliefs. You kind of go in between this little slick stuff where you go from side to side and upside down. You go over here, I'm leftist today, and you go over here, I'm right wing today. But I think that's as I close it, I want to say one thing. I think what you're seeing is that this is one place where the right and the left actually agree. I've said this. Where they agree is that we should be on the bottom. They may not agree on a lot of stuff. The right and the left may have strong disagreements about Medicare for all. They may have strong disagreements about climate change. Right? Where they agree and where they kind of meet up is that you Negroes don't get reparations. When they're talking about us and ADOS, they agree. It's a seamless thing. No. Now, we're going to fight about a lot of stuff, but we both agree that y'all get to stay on the bottom. Now you hush. Sick of you. And so I think you have to understand when you have that kind of arrangement, there is no solidarity. Solidarity falls apart. The Rainbow Coalition is not what it was thought could be. I understand what you might have thought, but it is not that. It has failed. And one of the things that we have to do with no personal animus, nothing's personal to me. Well, some things are, but this isn't. It's not personal that this is a project that just didn't work. And you can't keep pushing forward when you don't see any wins for your group. You can't keep pushing the project forward. You have to call time of death. And you have to build something new. We're in a position to where this is not a body death. This is a death of a project. Okay, what does the new project look like? Let's figure out what the new project look like. Let's figure out what the new agenda looks like. And we don't hate nobody, and we're not meaning nobody. I would never go on TV and say about Native Americans what this man said about us. I would never do that. We don't do it. I'm just going to call you out when you do it. And I'm going to say, listen, I can't have any solidarity with anybody who thinks this way. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's got to be. I got to listen, when my people are dying first of everything, whether it be COVID, whether it be heart disease, whether it be black women first in evictions, whether it be black men in jail, I don't have any choice but to put myself and my people first. That's just how the triage got to work. Triage always take the most injured. The triage got to put my people first. And I and my people, that's what it is. It can't be no other way. So that's all I want to say, fam. Right, we're going to go to break. I'm going to have a conversation. And, people going to be mad. People are always mad, but I don't think I ever care. So we're going to have a break, have a conversation, fam. Call in, keep your calls concise, but we're going to talk about it. Give me a few minutes to set up the phones and go back. All right, family, we are back. We are back. I am going to the phones. I'm going to 310 What's going on?
What up? This is Tone Talks. Yeah, I got a couple things to get through. The first thing I want to do, I think there's an image that I sent to you. Shout out to the ADOS here in California, out of Sacramento, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, San Diego, SoCal. They all got together and they represented strong at the California Reparations Study Bill hearing.
Okay.
The bill passed the Judiciary Committee, and the Democrats voted yes. Essentially, I think that one of the things that we got to start doing is pushing locally. But then I do say that let's be careful, because I understand what Darity said as well today, which is this can't be piecemeal. This is something that really needs to come out of the federal government. The hope is that we can create some kind of energy around this thing. But one of the problems that we're having right now about creating energy is that I don't think we understand how many people are very confused about race and shouldn't be speaking for ADOS. We had this discussion now about a year and 2 months ago about Kamala Harris, and I think she fits into the narrative of this show in the sense that I don't think that she understands ADOS life, let alone the reality of ADOS and race. Let me say why I say that. First part I say about that is she's about a couple years younger than my mom, and my mom never really left the country. I don't think we understand with her and Obama hopping around the world in the 70s, how they couldn't understand the all-encompassing, suffocating reality of race in America just by their own personal travels, let alone who taught them, these globalists that taught them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues that we start to see is that you have people speaking on our culture and our lives as ADOS that are not only not ADOS, but don't even understand what ADOS are. So if you're taught by somebody in Obama's sense, and Obama's example, who's Kenyan and comes from tribalism, or you're taught by someone who's white, or you're taught by someone like Kamala, who's Indian from a caste. We have her caste up. Kamala is Brahmin. She's not only in the caste, she's from the most elite part of the caste. One of the problems is you can't understand American race. Let me say why I think you can't. Because American race was built out of physical characteristics in such a different way than the way that castes are designed out of just like family structures. So you look black, therefore you are locked out. Whereas if you're in this Indian caste, the people at the top, and I'm not saying absolutely in every caste across the world, but generally speaking, the people at the top are Indian and the people at the bottom are Indian. So you come into this space and you don't really know what you're talking about. And you see that with this guy as well. This guy has the same issue that you brought up earlier, is that you have him speaking on race and no one actually told him you have no right to speak on it.
Mm.
And I think that the failure of this moment might be felt by a lot of people's children that are listening right now, along with themselves. I mean, COVID will make it very real. Because I think what's coming is that ADOS are going to be locked out entirely. Like, if I had to call it, ADOS are about to go through a substantial shift in the consequence of your poverty that many of you guys are not prepared for. I think that they're going to start asking you for real money in college. How many of y'all got like between a 12-year-old and even a 19-year-old that's actually in college and don't have $10,000 set aside for them? Not just for yourself and rainy day. I don't want to hear none of that. $10,000 in account for them to go to college next year or when they first year start. And if you don't, America's about to say college isn't for you. Because America is about to go through a whole transition where localities don't have enough money, where schools don't have enough money, and where the foreign dollars that were coming in that were buoying schools, the admission dollars won't be there, so you need to pay to be in this college group. I just see that coming. That's just one example. But my main point about the whole thing is I really think that there's a significant issue with somebody that comes out of tribalism or caste system understanding slavery and racial structures in America. And I don't know if everybody told them that you maybe shouldn't talk about this at all. You know what I'm saying, Yvette?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then now I want to talk about the other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, which was the Bahamian guy that they're running around Princeton. So Princeton had the big issue. We built the campus as slaves, and they were supposed to deal with this and everything else. So now, all of a sudden, we have our first black valedictorian. But this first black valedictorian is not American. But not only is he not American, he's not Adolf. But nobody is reporting it that way. You have to dig to find this extra part. What does it matter that a Bahamian became a person that got the top status at prison? The whole thing is supposed to be about a progress or overcoming that didn't happen. But in addition, I think there's another significant issue. The other significant issue is that you have this lie going on, where as long as we create some black person, we ain't got to deal with Adolf's black folk. You can read it for yourself. He's the son of a Bahamian. And there's nothing wrong with being the son of a Bahamian. But I have no idea how that should be celebrated or how he has a right to be the first black valedictorian. And I think in so many ways it's hard for people to understand this, because then they start saying it's divisive. Well, it's divisive for you to hold him out this way. And that's why I say that this whole black thing is a very problematic thing, because it's not dealing with Adolf. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to actually see a divergence between Adolf and black Caribbeans and black West Africans because of two things. The first factor, well, actually three things I'll put it off on. The first factor and primary factor being that these people are largely the elite from wherever they come from, and that's who we're competing against. The second factor being that they're much more tribal than us. Largely, they'll help each other and they'll shut us out in the way that we don't. And the third factor is their local. We don't understand sometimes their localities or their countries they come from have certain privileges, and they don't. There's no way for us to get access to that while they get all access to this. I said in a prior call maybe about a year ago about Trinidad. They get medical school for free for their Trinidadians. So you can go there, get your medical school for free because you're a Trinidadian. Then come back here and compete against the Adolf, but we don't have any boundaries up just for Adolf. But when we do it, we're divisive. But that's not divisive to have a whole medical school for free in Trinidad just for Trinidadian citizens. None of that makes any sense. And what it leads to is that let me explain it to you as a black professional. You interject this doctor that has no student loans into an environment where the few black doctors that are there need to fight for unionization because they have student loans, and this other black doctor saying, I'm good. Yeah, you good, because you don't have student loans because Trinidad gave you the money. That's just a wealth transfer. And I'm saying all of this because I come back to this yet, man, and I don't understand what the celebration is. He should be just. We saw the same thing with the other girl. I think a few with Harvard in the law review. I don't know if we all understand how awful it is that they took a Canadian Bahamian and allowed him to be projected as the answer for American race.
Yep.
I don't think we understand how awful it is that nobody has said anything about this like it's just okay. And the last thing I'll say is, I don't know if all of you guys understand the consequence of all of that. I want you to understand, my father grew up without a father. He was not a professional. From Alabama. This man's father is a Bahamian doctor. By what right does he get to stand next to me? By what right does he get to stand next to any of us as Adolf and allow Princeton to escape the cost of my father? Y'all better get real with it, because if you don't, your kids going to have to deal with it. I'm out.
Appreciate it, Tone, as always. Tone's always bringing that fire. Yeah. Like, there's no, because what they're doing to him, because it's not like, listen, if an Asian had been I'm sure they've already been the valedictorian, or a white person, nobody would say anything. You're projecting this because the college was built of slaves. You're trying to say, well, look, blacks are achieving. And because ADOS hasn't done the work to say, hey, there's no such thing as just blacks. There's ADOS, and we have a bunch of other groups. in this country, and they can all, we can talk about Ghanaians, we can talk about Nigerians, we can talk about Bahamians, all them, but they're not us. Since we haven't done the work, people can put that out there, and everybody thinks, oh, look at the blacks are doing so well, and it's just like, no, what, who? Anyway, fam, I'm going to my first call. I am going to 919. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Yeah, this is Latasha Gibson. I'm actually calling from.
Hello? 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 Well, call back, Latasha. I don't hear a thing. Anyway, I am going to 773. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is absolutely you.
Okay, so I'm Lucretia from Chicago,
Okay.
and I thank you for covering this Zaid guy. I think I had tweeted you about it because I was really upset after watching that video, and of the heel of just allowing him to talk and go on, and they called it an analysis, as if, he was coming with something, that was substantive to, like, our experience. And he, for one, he didn't study history. He studied, I think it was international relations and then public administration, and then he called himself a journalist. I don't understand why he's not doing things in the area of which he studied, and I don't know why he is allowed to talk about the black experience. And they said, that he was from Georgia, as if that makes him an expert of some sort on the black experience. But I wanted to talk about two things, and that's the importance of history and leadership. One, in terms of history, he made it seem as if with his statements that our history doesn't matter. Like, all that matters is the present, and we shouldn't be examining the past because we all know the past. And I think that that's a horrible assumption to make. And I think that we as ADOS people have to start examining the history that is being taught in our schools. And I thought that this 1619 project was actually a great jumping off point for a lot of us to discuss slavery and to have a fresher conversation about it amongst high school students, elementary school students, etc. But there is no universal way that our history is taught. And that's a part of the problem, right? There are all these different theories about, how the Civil War began. And,
let me just piggyback on what you just said. Part of the problem is there are people right now in different states teaching that slaves were happy immigrants. And you haven't this is how I know this dude is these people are up to no good. There are people right now teaching that, like, and they put we saw some of the curricula that, like, slavery wasn't so bad, and you didn't jump on that. Now you're supposed to be a good little leftist or a good little right wing. I don't know it depends on what day it is that you want to be. Whatever you want to be, you get to recreate yourself every day, and nobody calls you a fraud. But you never ever go after. I didn't see anybody going after these schools and basically saying, I had my own issues with 1619 Project. I said that before. But I don't see anybody going at all of this, the racism in our schools, these racists, especially, what was the little man's name? He was brown too. Who was mayor, what was he, governor? What was it, like, Louisiana? What was he, that little man? I can't remember. But anyway, somebody tell me in the chat that's going to bother me. What was he? Was he Louisiana? I think he was. But nobody says like, okay, like, he didn't, if your concern was really racism and all that stuff, I don't see a bunch of people running to protest. Bobby Jindal, yes, Bobby Jindal, little brown Bobby Jindal, was the one he allowed them school books to be whatever they was and say we was just living our lives as little Negro children. So nobody says anything when that's the thing, right? You don't jump down their throats and protest like that's wrong, that's awful. But when somebody says, listen, slavery is an enormous thing, and we have, and not only that, it still has an impact to this day, and it may have impacted the revolution, and then all of a sudden history matters to you. It didn't matter to you when people said we were happy little slaves, but now all of a sudden it matters. So I'm gonna let you finish. I just want to interject that to what you said. You're right.
No, thank you for that affirmation. I I just want to say that, like, history is just so important. And I started taking up African American studies classes in college, and I didn't realize how much I didn't know until then. Like, I think we assume that we know so much about our history until you actually take those type of courses. You realize that there's so much that you just don't know. And so I really encourage, like, all of us in the ADOS community to really encourage our children and the next generation to take up African American studies. Even as a minor, I minored in it. I didn't major in it, but because it gives you a solid foundation. And so that leads to my next point, which is leadership. We should not have people who don't understand our history occupying spaces of leadership. And he brought up, black mayors and why didn't they cover Obama and all these things. And I agree with that critique that, there are a lot of black people who have been occupying spaces of political power that haven't been giving us anything. But I just want to give all this frame of reference. In this Black Power class that I took with somebody, by the way, Yvette, who was not a fan of yours, but I was defending you really hard in his class. His name was Cedric Johnson, by the way. I read this book called Black Urban Regime, Structural Origins and Constraints, and it talks about black leaders during the 1970s to the 1980s who ran for office, and it talks about how they were unsuccessful, not because of their just because they were black or whatever, but it's because during that time they were under extreme financial and social constraints. Like, that was during, the beginning of deindustrialization. And nobody wants to talk about that and put that into context. A lot of our black leaders have failed because we don't have money, because we come from slavery. It all goes back to our history. But black leaders have had to play these games with white people in order to get financing for their cities. And we don't discuss that, right? And, like, I think we need to start unpacking what is good leadership. And, like I said, knowing the history is one, being accountable to our people is another, but we also have to judge people based on their constraints and provide them with new resources and tools to do their job. So I'll shut up. But thank you so much for covering this.
Yeah, thank you so much, fam. Thank you so much, fam. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think, I read everybody's work. I read Johnson's work too, but I don't really and I appreciate her defending me. I don't care about these, these people, I don't know. I really don't care. Like, if people just disagree, they can disagree. That's fine. And I appreciate her telling me, because now that I know it, if I come in contact you in the street, somebody told me the truth about you. Well, is he still somebody passed? Who passed? I can't remember who did what. I can't remember who passed, and it's been so many passings. It was like a year or two ago. I can't remember who was the black writer historian who passed not too long ago, maybe a year ago, fam. Let me bring this up real quick too. This dude was in the doggone in the nation. In, like, what was this, like, in 12th grade? Like, what man? Like, who? Like, sometimes you wonder about people. Who hooked you up? As a senior at Kennesaw Mountain High School in Kennesaw, Georgia, finalist 2006, right? Who hooked you up to where you had to you was already getting your thing on? And the school you went to was 43% white and 27% black. So you talking about race? Why? I'm trying to understand this Zed Jelani guy. I'm trying to figure out, like, what you was doing. You won you was in the nation with your 2006. And understand something. Hold on, let me bring this other thing up really, really quickly. Hold on, I got another one, I think. Because part of what this little Negro, part of what this little brown person, he quoted King in this too. So, like, it's so wild how people get to use King to talk about stuff. But you were in a white high school doing your thing. And, like, you want to come up and now and tell us that, like, race don't matter. After King wasn't he a part of your essay? Like, come on, man. Like, we just let people, and, like, part of the problem is, like, we don't challenge anything. As ADOS, we just let people fly loosey-goosey. Even Bobby, y'all remember when I just brought that Bobby Jindal thing up? Y'all remember when Bobby Jindal, do y'all remember when he did that answer to the State of the Union and he slid down them steps? He didn't fall, but do y'all remember how he slid down them steps? Hello, I'm Bobby Jindal. I fell out. I remember it now. Bobby Jindal, little Bobby Jindal. Nikki Haley, too, that's another one. Changed her name and everything. Chat going in. These groups are here to access whiteness, not necessarily help you. Come on now, let's get with it. Going to the next call, fam. I am going to, let's see. I'm going to 912. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, Yvette. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, fam. What's going on?
Sweet. This is Bernard from Salt Lake City by way of Georgia.
Ah, okay.
And unlike this Zaid, this Zed, or whatever this off-white person is, I'm not gonna pretend like I don't know about Georgia. I was actually seething when I saw that video because they just had Irby on 2 days ago, and I think I saw that video maybe. I think it came out yesterday, and I left a pretty nasty comment in the comment section because I was like, how do you have this off-white person here talking about us? And then at the end of it, Crystal Ball chimes in and says, well, how come the 1619 Project didn't talk about other groups? And I'm like, are you freaking serious, Crystal?
Like, dude, yeah.
I was like, y'all are a joke, but this guy, so now that I found out that he's from Cobb County, because you just indicated that, how can he not understand what's going on with something like Marta? He's seriously holding the black mayors in the city of Atlanta, which is in Fulton County, responsible for the fact that Gwinnett and Cobb keep turning down a transportation initiative because they want to keep out black people. And he's pretending not to know that. Like, y'all keep saying that he doesn't understand enough about race, but some of it has to be duplicity. He has to be lying. Because I'm actually from the Savannah area, and I only was in Atlanta for about 10 years, getting most of my education, and even I understand how those dynamics work. And when you actually bring into the black governance into the picture, the way I actually think of it is it's kind of similar to the way the sisters from Chicago talked about it. So when you actually look at Metro Atlanta and compare its public transportation system to the other major southern cities, it's actually quite superior. And I know that that's setting a very low bar. But there's this city that's run by some white Spanish-speaking people in South Florida that can't even compare. So imagine what we could have built if we didn't have that resistance from white people. And yet he views it the opposite. So, and it got nothing to do with our culture or us being black or anything like that. The fact is, we have to function within the constructs of white supremacy, and this guy gets on there and pretends not to know that to take shots at the 1619 Project, which talks about us, and then Crystal Ball, being the white leftist that she is, says, well, you have to fold the other groups into this narrative as well.
Yeah, but like, why do we have to? Like the thing is, nobody would expect anybody to fold anybody into, like the Holocaust. No, that happened to the Jewish people. I don't expect them to fold us into the narrative. Well, what about the Negroes? You know, the Negroes went through stuff too. I don't expect that. Tell your story. Get your redress. I don't expect the Native Americans to fold us into anything. Well, you know, we had the Trail of Tears, but the Negroes went through things. I don't expect, it's only us. When people come in and be like, well, you have to fold everybody else in. You can't have a story. You can't have a legacy. You can't have a lineage. Oh, I don't even believe you built the country. Prove it. Like, and somebody go look up what Kennesaw Mountain High School in Kennesaw, Georgia, like, what is the wealth level there? I didn't look it up before the show, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, because it seemed pretty white. So I'm just trying to figure out who this person is who come out here talking about race in America.
Very white.
Yeah, it look pretty white, don't it? I know Kennesaw pretty white. I'm born and raised in Georgia.
I had to do an interview at Kennesaw State University for a program before, and let's say I took the bus there, Cobb County Transit. Those are some scary looking white people, so I'm kind of shocked that they want to keep us out. But
well, they don't think that about themselves.
Either way, I thought that whole conversation was just very strange, and I was super disappointed. And I was like, I thought Crystal Ball could do a little bit better than this, and I don't know what they had this guy on here for. And what I said in the comment is kind of like, you know what, the next time you have on an immigration advocate, why don't you somehow interject and say, why aren't you talking about the effects of immigration on low-skilled African-American workers? See how they react to that.
Yeah, but then if you had that conversation, yeah, you can't have that conversation, no, fam, because then you're a xenophobe and you're a nativist, and how dare you? And people are going to chase. People have been chasing me around for a year when I said, you know, it disproportionately affects African Americans, especially African American men, ADOS men. That's what I said, and everybody's like, oh my God, how dare you? Well, how dare I think for myself and just use the data that's here? Like, how dare I do that? How dare I advocate? You're not allowed to. You're not supposed to advocate for ADOS. You're supposed to use ADOS as a mule to help other groups, and that's why we get the amount of pushback that we get, because this is not how the Democratic Party designed this group. They designed this group to be a mule, and like, we're not being a mule no more, and we're being when you grow into stallion as opposed to mule, you become a problem for the party.
Yeah, apparently we're a mule with a giant umbrella that's supposed to help out other groups and do unidirectional solidarity. It's a mess. But
yeah,
that's all I have. I was pretty upset about that.
Thank you, fam.
Piece that came out from them.
Thank you, fam. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much.
You know, I tried to avoid watching it because I said, I don't want to see this. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to look at this. And then something just ate at me. Look at it, Yvette. Look at it. And I was like, oh, this is just awful. This is awful. I don't want to. Ooh. Then you have to talk about it. I'm going to the next call. I am going to 347. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, how you doing? My name is Drew. I am from New York, but I live in DMV, Prince George's County to be specific, which is hilarious when, you know, we've been talking about it for a little bit for the last few shows. And it's funny because to hear people talk about it being one of the wealthiest counties for African Americans, I don't think the county looks that wealthy to me, but I'll digress from that point. I want to thank you first and foremost. I emailed you maybe a couple years ago because you, in my opinion, saved my life, I have to say. Because I was one of those do-for-selfers, strive to do the best that I can. I watched, you know, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar every day. I was like, think positively, everything will work out. And I remember putting myself and my spouse into a lot of debt to go into this business that failed miserably and almost destroyed our lives. Then I happened upon one of your videos on YouTube and you literally saved my life. I was ready to like end it all, seriously. And then I started watching you and I realized I'm black and that's why my business failed. And I didn't know, I didn't understand. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
No, I remember you, fam. I remember you because you called in before. But let me just say this: I have emailed so many suicidal people back. People don't even know what nobody even really knows what ADOS people are going through. And I don't chuckle to be funny. I'm just like the veneer that we put off versus like the reality is just the most. They've driven us insane.
Full disclosure, I am not ADOS. I am a fierce ADOS ally. My family is actually from the island of Jamaica, and so there's some Cuban influence in there as well. But I've always identified as African American until I happened upon your show. It helped me understand the difference. And so I've become a fierce ally. My best friend, she's from Alabama. She's fully ADOS, and me and her, we talk about you, and we spread your information to everyone across the board as much as we can. But like I said, the story kind of mimics what an ADOS goes through. So this is why I feel like I understand so wholeheartedly. And I always wanted to get the opportunity to tell you thank you so much because you literally saved my life. Because of what I understand now, I no longer fault myself. I also would disparage, you know how a lot of us, one of the, in my opinion, the ramifications from descending from slavery is a lot of self-hate. So I think a lot of us have that, including, ADOS islands that come from like Jamaica or Caribbean islands that descend from slavery. And I think that was a part of my narrative. I thought that a lot of our community, the things that we dealt with was our fault. You helped me realize it's not. Don't fault yourself. And that was really powerful and profound. And I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you so much. You and Antonia Moore changed my life. But I wanted to say more specifically about this video. Oh, go ahead. You were saying
No, go ahead. Go ahead, fam. I wasn't gonna say anything.
I saw this video a day ago, and it made my blood boil. So I was like one of the first people to comment, like, why is this guy Zaid on here talking about this when you have someone like Irony, who you've had on the show many times, who would be able to tie in the history of why 1619 does relate to today. It's like he was confused. He talked about how, oh, well, African Americans had the civil rights struggle, they should be fine now. And I was like, what is he talking about? Like, he's pretending like that made a difference for the community. It was really insulting and rude. But I don't know if you know this, he was on a show prior. He was like on a panel on that show, and he was talking about how Bernie Sanders was able to skirt the conversation about reparations, and how he was proud of that, and how he was happy of that. And that was one of the first times I was like, wait a minute, why is he happy that Bernie Sanders is skirting the reparations conversation? That made me look at him side-eyed. And then this interview here, or this conversation here where he talked about that, I knew, I was like, he's problematic. So thank you for bringing this up again and highlighting all of the issues he has. Brown and Black Coalition does not exist. The Rainbow Coalition, it's a farce. You're absolutely correct.
It is. And let me just say this, and shout out to you as an ally, because what you need, is an ally who you have a solidarity that's based on something, right? So your experience of like what happened to you here kind of align with ADOS, and so like, okay, now I'm an ally because those experiences line. I see what they're talking about, whatever. You can't have but it can't be just, it has to be based off like agreement, right? So you calling in because, hey, just help me, I agree. It can't be based off, well, we both got melanin, so we just in this together. Like, that's that's not how it works. And I don't think people understand that, like, that's not how solidarity works. That's not how you develop allies. That's not how it works.
And I fully agree with the notion that if this ADOS fights work in the United States, I can parody off of what's done here and bring it to the island Jamaica and do the same for my family, because reparations from the United States is not owed to my family, and it's very clear to me, and I try to make sure that's very clear too when I talk to people about that as well.
Well, and let me just say this too, fam. I don't know if people understand, like, nothing good in terms of like, I don't even get into this a lot. But nothing good happens in terms of reparations or international politics for black people in general, in terms of the quote black, if it doesn't happen for ADOS. Like, this domino has to fall first. I'm clear on that. Like, this domino in America has to fall. It has to fall first. Like, 400 years, we are the belly of the beast. This is the domino that has to fall first. It can't be like another domino in another country. Because we're like, and the thing is, like, I don't think people really understand. People really do believe that as ADOS or Yvette really hates these people, or Antonio. No, I don't at all. Like, I'd be willing to like move this to different places and like talk to you about how to do this for your country. Like, but it has to, like, because of what America is and what America symbolizes, and because of who we are, this domino gotta fall first. It's not gonna happen nowhere else.
Absolutely, Yvette. Absolutely.
Because that would be heard around the world.
This agenda.
Yep. Go ahead, fam.
The ADOS agenda for reparations would essentially be the rubric for reparations for other African peoples that have been dispersed across the globe. I really do feel that way, and that's why I support it so vehemently. I'm in the military now, and I talk to all of my military comrades about this. It's very interesting when I have these conversations with them, and I'm actually generally surprised at how open-minded a lot of people are to it, because they're a lot younger. I'm a little bit older than they are. They're a lot younger. They're generally receptive when I give them the information, so I do think that a data approach works best, usually, when I talk to people about these kinds of things. Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. Thank you, fam. That's a great place to end on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We gotta do. See. He lived the 80. He was living like the stuff we talk about. Let me just say this. Like, let me just bring this up, because I asked, like, what's going on in Kennesaw? What the money look like over there? So let's just look at how they living over there in some of these places. I brought up, it's more than one, right? So what? I'm just saying. Let's go from low to high. So you gotta ask yourself, like, who gets to speak? Let's go high. So this is not the Black South. You don't come from the Black South. You say you come from Atlanta, But you don't come from, you don't come from where I come from. That's not where you hail from, dear. This little man who's talking with the zip codes, these are the zip codes from where you live. These are the zip codes from where you come from. I don't understand. What are you mimicking? Let me see. Hold on a second. People just be acting. Well, I came from Georgia too. Like you was trying to talk like you come from somewhere. Like you come from where the Negroes are. I come from where the Negroes are. I ain't seen you nowhere over there. I mean, this is just a zip code. Just tell me what your house was. These are just just questions I have. Let's not play with each other. This is a zip code for your high school, ain't it? You lived in one of these places, ain't you? I mean, Zed, whatever your name is. Anyway, let me get to another call. I am going to 613-613. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Yvette. I'm Mike, calling from Canada. I think you're just one of the most talented people on YouTube. Your show always makes me laugh and think.
Oh, thank you.
But I was watching you with Antonio Moore this afternoon during my break at work.
Okay, good.
And from working from home. And so I was watching you with Antonio Moore talking about the Michael Jordan documentary. And can you please tell Antonio Moore to just stop going on and on about the decadent veil? I mean, the whole concept is ridiculous. I mean, I understand Antonio Moore's point that during the period of black celebrity, the 1980s, 1990s, when we had the rise of Michael Jordan and Bill Cosby and Oprah and everything, he always shows that the wealth gap increased during this period. And he's very focused on the data, which I appreciate, but he only looks at the economic data. If you actually look at life expectancy during that period, life expectancy gap, life expectancy, like between blacks and whites,
why would I look at that?
Difference in how long they live. That gap actually dropped dramatically, and there's lots of interesting articles on why that happened. Why did it close during that period? And they often say, well, there's diminishing racism, diminishing stress, so infant mortality went down. So I think both of you don't appreciate enough the role that black celebrities played, particularly at that time, in giving African Americans hope and something to strive for. And I know you think of that as negative, as neutralizing your politics, but I think psychologically and emotionally it did a lot of good. It helped reduce racism and helped enhance mental health in African Americans. And I think that that symbolism was instrumental in
all right. I appreciate you calling.
Health and life expectancy.
I appreciate you. Thank you for calling in. Listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. The largest expansion of the wealth gap in American history. That's the period we're talking about. That does nothing for the emotional or psychological health. It's almost like, you know what I compare it to? Honestly? When we talk about symbolism or whatever, I compare it to candy. You know how candy gives you a bump? You ever ate a pack of Annihilators at one time and you just get woo? Get you a little Jolly Rancher in there. You're like, ooh, get you a little lemon head in there. And you're like, ooh. Because you get that sugar rush. You feel so, I'm going to hear him in here. I feel like, and then you crash. You crash because the sugar wasn't a nutrient. The sugar was just a blood rush. That's what symbolism is. It's a blood rush. And in a sense, it made you believe in a world that isn't real, right? It makes you believe like, yeah, I feel something. I feel something, I feel something. I feel like I can lift some stuff up. That's a sugar rush. Sugar rush is not the protein that builds muscle. It's not the good carbohydrate from the broccoli or the orange that really fuels long-term energy. It's just a lie. It's just some cheap glucose, sugar, whatever, man-made to just kind of give you. It's not even watermelon Jolly Rancher ain't a real watermelon. It ain't a real, like apple Jolly Rancher ain't a real apple. Not later either. It's a cheap imitation. And that's what that was. It was just a cheap imitation. And it's hard to swallow. Because it's fun. I'm not saying it wasn't fun or it wasn't good TV. In terms of just generically. Not in terms of race. But eventually what it did was made us believe in America that doesn't exist. And it gave us Obama. And it gave us a whole lot of symbolic problems. That's the issue with it. So no, sir, I'm not going to tell Antonio Moore to stop talking about the decadent veil because it absolutely matters and I absolutely disagree with you. Enjoy the show, though. Appreciate you. Go on to the next call. I'm going to 737. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, this is Z. I'm calling from the belly of the beast to DC.
Okay, what's up with you?
I am actually, I'm going through a special time, because a very dear close friend of mine, he's a black ADOS student at a prominent, predominantly white institution, and he was racially harassed by his professor, and then he complained about it, and the whole school came down on him. And this is a special time because I think it might all come to an end. I don't think this is going to end well. You just can't go up against a whole white institution as an individual and as a black individual. And I want to call out three kinds of people. There's the liberals, racists who pretends to be. There's a racist who pretends to be liberal, right? They go to Women's March, and they go to, they sign open letters for immigrants, but they are racist down, under their skin.
Okay.
And then there are sellouts. Like, you are ADOS. Why would you participate in prosecuting another black person? Like, that does not make sense on so many levels, and I want to see how much money you're making, and I hope that's worth it. And finally, I want to call out white allies, white peers, white friends. Right? You cannot privately speak against racism. You cannot speak against racism only in social context. And then when the push comes to shove, when it's time to save your friend, for example, to write an open letter to support your friend, or your black friend who is being prosecuted because of racism, you cannot just up and leave and disappear and pretend this is too much mental stress for you, and pretend this is too difficult for you, and pretend you have better things to do. You have other people to save. You want to save people in Africa, in South America, and you don't do the right thing right here, and then stand up for your friend right here where you are, where you can make the biggest difference.
Absolutely.
So that's what's on my mind.
Okay. Understood. Absolutely. I agree with you. Everybody loves to turn, like, this is here. This is right here. This is America. This is where we live. We're all supposed to be citizens in this thing together. But, like, when the time comes to help us, you like, well, I want to build rainwater bridges in sub-Saharan Africa. It's like, wait a minute. Like, what about right here? So I agree there's a lot of tucking tail and running with some of these supposed allies, especially those liberals and leftists. Yeah, because I don't expect somebody on the right to really necessarily be an ally. If I see that, I'm shocked. But I have a different expectation. But, it is what it is. Thank you, fam. I appreciate it. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much, fam. Gonna go back. What's gonna go back 310? What's going on?
Yeah, man. Hey, tell boy that he can come on my show when it come back on, and he can call in, and I'll slap him around a little bit. Because, I just feel like what's going on is people done created their image out of Carlton on Fresh Prince.
Mm.
And it's like, I don't care how much Carlton you got in you. Look, if your parents don't have no wealth, you about to be locked out. So sounding how you sound to try to make you seem like you're a little smarter, that's not going to get you nowhere further. Slow down and understand that the wealth data is what tells us everything. Now, I understand that he's saying what he says about mortality rates. Until we really break it down and understand why that's the case, maybe part of it is that they take out the prisoners. Maybe part of it is that. I hate when people source stuff and then don't give us no study. Let me say it again. I hate when people source stuff and don't give us no years, no study, no nothing. So, you got this guy that has mimicked his imagery after Carlton on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, sitting up and telling us that the wealth don't matter, and he just saying it in a backwards way. Can you pull up the image I just sent to you? We were having a show about the Michael Jordan documentary. Michael Jordan's career spanned about 83 to, let's just talk about it, the documentary is 98. I don't understand how you don't understand that that's when we're going to talk about the decadent veil because of the rise of Michael Jackson and Cosby and everybody else. But I'm going to slow it all the way down because I don't do just random mentions of stuff. Look at this chart. How do you think they got this chart to work other than black celebrities? Let me explain again. That bottom red line is black folks. The purple line is Latinos, but they come from a developing country. So I don't even know how they're included on this chart. It should just be blacks and whites because the third line really is because they come from a developing country and they just got here. Yeah, that's what happened. The other two groups just been here the whole time, bar some number of black immigrants, which is a nominal part of the black group, particularly if you go back into '89.
Mm. Yep.
The thing that I'm telling you is that we went from $24 trillion in wealth gap to 100, and that entire span is the rise of the decadent veil at a wholly different level. Don't get me wrong, you had Motown, but what we saw in this '89 to 2020 phase was a hyper exaggeration of black celebrity like we had never seen before, and at the same time, white capital was basically doing all kind of gains to increase their wealth level at ways we had not seen even during slavery. So literally, we go from $24 trillion in wealth difference to 100, and the only reason, let me say, the primary reason that black folks can't see it is because they look at themselves through a lens of what? Black celebrity. Now, in addition, hold on, you gave us black politics through Obama, who only came about through what? Black celebrities.
Mm.
There is no Obama without Oprah. If she does not bring him on the stage and brand him, understand there's other stuff. It's hard talking to people that don't know nothing. There's other meetings that happen that I particularly know about. They made Obama out of black celebrity. They took a bunch of black celebrity like peanut butter and jelly and spatuled him together and basically sold him together. Understand this. When you see that dip, you see the dip in the chart?
Mm.
Everything after that dip is Obama. So Obama took us from $60 trillion in wealth for white folks, and nearly none for black folks, one or two, to 100. And his whole claim to fame was black celebrities. It wasn't policy. What policy had Obama done prior to getting elected that led to him to becoming the president? Answer me that. He didn't do policy. He came directly out of the Cosby Show. That's why we voted for him. We voted for him because he reminded us of, him and Michelle reminded us of Claire and Heathcliff. I don't know how to tell you You should know you causing for Fresh Prince. I'm just saying. People cut themselves. You can read so many black people that cut themselves out of little molds of other people on TV. Like some people gonna be Ice Cube, some people gonna be Carlton, some people gonna be, and then you turn around and tell me some stuff about you don't understand why black celebrity matters. Coming back to it, look. Next time you call into the show, have your sheets ready. I want you to source your studies. Because if it ain't right, I'm going to light into you. I'm done.
Appreciate it, Todd. Thanks for calling back in. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I think he said that. Did he call in one time before and say something like that? Like, it's, you know, he get mad when you talk about the Cosby Show and stuff, and Jordan and stuff. He keep, like, you gotta. Let me just say something. You gotta push back as a human when you really invested in something. And somebody get you all riled up, you gotta say, oh, pump your brakes. Like, let's have some self-reflection. Why am I so hopped up over this? Like, you don't ever call in until they have something to do with, like, black celebrity. Like, let's think about it. What is the Cosbys or Jordan? Whenever we talk about black celebrities, you get a wild hair up your butt. Like, let's talk about why that is. Anyway, let me go to another caller real quick because I don't want to leave everybody online. I know it's a lot of people want to have a conversation. Woo, it's a lot going on. I understand. Let me see where we're going to now. I am going to, what is this? Oh, my eyes is bad. 770-770. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Yeah, my name is Juanita, and I'm calling from Atlanta.
What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Looking at these crazy white folks talking about they don't want Martin in their area because it'll bring the urban element.
Yes, the urban element. That means Negroes.
That means Negroes. I just wanted to say that I graduated from Kennesaw State University in the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. And there are some ADOS and other melanated people that live up there, but they got income. Because there is no hood in Kennesaw.
Okay.
There is no hood in Kennesaw. Kennesaw is made of the nice houses that you had up there and nice subdivisions.
Ain't that right?
And yes, very nice subdivisions and they got brand new malls and everything right up there for the Caucasian people. So and I say this from experience because when I graduated and I got my degree in nursing from up there, there were three melanated people in the class. And the only thing my family had to say about me was, well, you was easy to find in the graduation. Because it was me and two other people. But this whole thing with like that guy from Canada, he needs to tend to his business up in Canada. Because he doesn't know what he's talking about. I happen to know that people still will argue me down. Like you said, you have to just leave them alone. But I still know people that will say that the reason why Obama didn't do anything for us is because the Congress was against it.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a political culture. Like most of those people don't even know that. Like when Obama got there, he had a Democratic Congress. You know, so like we don't even have a political culture. Like there's supposed to be a political. I used to tell people a long time ago when I've opposed Obama since about 2000, late 2009, early 2010. And I used to tell people, listen, if your introduction to politics came with an Obama bumper sticker, don't talk to me. Like, let's not have a conversation. Let's just avoid that whole thing. And you walk your way and I walk mine because you don't know enough. Like, they don't know that, like, no, that's not how he came in. Like, you could think about all the stuff you could have pushed through. He wasted a bunch of time on healthcare because he didn't know what he was doing. And he let Republicans get ahead of him. And they still used the death panels and all the stuff about Obamacare to kind of kill a bunch of other Democrats. And then Obama refused to campaign for because he had political capital. He wanted to be selfish and use his political capital himself. He refused to campaign for Democrats who he put in a bad position by having them vote for Obamacare, and he hadn't laid out a plan or a clear and concise message about what Obamacare was supposed to be. He did that. Like, own your failures. But that's another story. I'm going to let you finish up, fam.
All the way from that to not appointing anybody to the Supreme Court. I lay it all on him. But if you try to tell people, and not just boomers, if you try to tell people that were able to vote during those elections, what happened, and you show them the proof, they look at you like you some kind of creature from Mars somewhere, and you're making up stuff. And I'm tired of listening to people telling me, "Oh, you're so negative. You listen to that angry black woman twice a week. That's why you talk like this." I don't know. I do not know how you can get someone to open up their mind and see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with all this going on, I still know people that say, "Well, if we just work harder, we'll be able to get ahead."
Yeah, and they don't know anything. Those are people who don't know anything.
They don't know anything.
Yeah.
They don't know anything. You know, they think because, well, I'm an RN, you know, and I've been one a while, and I make a decent salary. I ain't getting rich off of it, but it's better than a lot of other people. And they think because they're in that position that it's okay. And when I said, well, how you going to send your kids to college? You got the money already saved up? Then people listen at me all upside my head like I'm crazy.
Not upside your head, fam. That ain't right.
Looking upside my head. Looking upside my head. I'm from Chicago, so they looking upside my head. They try to get me off my square. I will not do it.
No, you can't do it. But let me go ahead, fam. Finish up. I'm gonna let you finish up.
No, what I'm saying is that I don't know how to make people understand. I don't know how to get people out of that headspace that they're in, where they think that everything is gonna be all right if they stay.
Well, hold on, fam. Hold on. And this is a perfect place to end our call. You're saying to me, I don't know how to get people out of that headspace. Let me tell you something. Coronavirus is gonna get everybody out of that headspace, and I don't care whether or not, it doesn't matter whether or not you get it. That's not what I'm talking about. It matters, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the budget cuts that states are going to have to make, because the federal government is only coming to a very limited kind of rescue, and it ain't even real rescue. It's been co-opted for a bunch of people, and the IRS trying to make it give it back and all kind of stuff. So what happens is, you're going, because of the cuts that are going to happen, everybody's going to have to live being ADOS now. You may not see it now. It may be a year, or it may be 6 months before it shows up. But these people are going to start living it. Don't worry about what you're going to have to do to make them see. You know, we always said, Antonio and I always said that people are going to go over a cliff. We didn't know what that cliff was necessarily going to look like, but ADOS is going to go over a cliff just because of where we are economically. What has happened with COVID is it has expedited that. It's like put this thing on roller skates in a very real way. You don't have to wonder what I got to do to show people. It's about to happen. They about to see it. Now, what they do when they see it is a whole nother thing. What they do when they see it is up to them. They can lay on their bathroom floor and cry and pee. They can whatever. So I hear you in the background, but fam. So I'm gonna let you go, but listen, that's just what it is. Like, I'm sorry. Oh my God, this show must have been, people want to talk about this. I'm about to have to end the show, but yeah, we're going to have to do a longer show next time to have the callers call in and call about this too. I've never seen the phone so stuffed up. But this is like, you're not going to have to, like, all the stuff we've been saying. We were seeing it happen, but it was happening in a very kind of gradual way. And it was happening. No. Coronavirus, we never expected to be in the midst of a plague. Did we? I didn't. I thought anything is a possibility. But that wouldn't have been the thing I put in the number one slot. But that is what's in the number one slot. So this is going to expedite everything. These states are going to cut a whole bunch of stuff, especially the red states. They about to slash stuff like 20%. People are about to feel it. So you don't have to do nothing. Just wait till they feel it. It's coming. It's coming. Don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. So anyway, fam, we are going to have to end the show for today. It went a little long. I'm gonna try to maybe get it started earlier on Wednesday so we can get some more to callers in, because I know a lot of people seem to have had strong feelings about this last this show. So if you want to say something about it next show, I won't be mad. You know, like a lot of times I say, stay on topic. I won't be mad if you talk about this show because I know a lot of people couldn't get through. Fam, anyway, it's a lot. Anyway, fam, please, before we go, please hit that like. Please hit that like button for me. I would appreciate it. Somebody said I should do a call-in show twice a month. That's interesting. What you mean? You talking about just a show where people just call in general? Like they're talking about people just get to call in and like a call-in show only? Is that what you're saying? Just let me know. Let me know. We might be able to do that. Somebody wanted Princess 6 wants to talk about Martin. So maybe we will do a call-in show. So we can everybody can talk about this show. Because Princess says she want to talk about Marta and Gwinnett. So maybe we can do a call-in show that's about this show. Would y'all be cool with that? Like if maybe we did, what is tomorrow? I think it's Tuesday. If tomorrow, the people who called in tonight, just do a call-in show tomorrow about like what was talking, because the calls are stuffed tonight. Like it is crazy. So I tell you what we do. Somebody remind me if I don't remember. I'll be done set down somewhere and we're supposed to do a call-in show. I tell you what we do. Tomorrow. No, Wednesday's the regular show. We can't do the call-in show on the regular show day. That ain't gonna make no kind of sense. Yeah, let's schedule a call-in show. I think let's see. Let me kick my schedule tomorrow and see if we can do it. But I think we might do a call-in show. Maybe we can delve into this like Atlanta stuff. Because that was just the wildest thing to me. How people just be like, I'm from Atlanta. I'm just Atlanta. Well, yes, it's Tuesday. I know the day is midnight. Why y'all gotta always play games? Let me think about it. I'll let you know on Twitter. If you want to know what I'm gonna do or how I'm gonna do it, just look at Twitter. And I'll let you know on Twitter how it's what I'm gonna do and what I'm thinking about in terms of a call-in show. Because there seems to be a consensus that we're gonna do a call-in show. So somebody said Thursday. Somebody said so. Let's okay. We need to do a call-in. Somebody said Tuesday. Okay. Well, y'all need to vote. Y'all gonna have to vote in the chat. Anyway, fam, I'll be watching the chat. Let me know. We are going to end this show, though, for today. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed. Please hit the bell. If you will hit the bell, I would appreciate it if you would hit the bell. If you know, please, as usual, if you want to donate, go to donatebrown.com or patreon.com/ycarnell. But you can hit that like button right now, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Go to subscribe-to-brown.com. Also costs you nothing to do that and add your name to my mailing list. Subscribe-to-brown.com. That's T-O, not the number. Subscribe-to-brown.com. Please do that as well. And until next time, check the Twitter to find out when next time is for the call-in show. We'll have a conversation. Be easy breezy, fam, and finish your libations.